So let's start with our session best practice to adapt Microsoft Teams. And first of all, who I am. My name is Alexander Eggers from Germany. I'm a consultant, speaker, and of course Teams advocate. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I have almost every day or 2 days some updates about Microsoft Teams, and one of my favorite things is ACM, adoption and change management. So let's start, and here's the agenda for today. It's first of all the difference between larger companies, so enterprise companies, and smaller ones we want to look at, and also what happens to the resistance in smaller ones. I will give you 5 tips around successful change in SMB customers. Well, of course, it also works in enterprise customers, but we have a focus on SMB and smaller ones. And we have a look at our 3 workshops that we use in SMB customers for around 100, 150 employees. And of course, a little conclusion at the end. So let's start. What's the difference between smaller companies up to 50 or 100 employees? And what I want to tell you is that I think it's about less software solutions. Why? Well, smaller companies use, of course, their ERP system, and maybe they have, well, of course, they have Outlook 365. And it's always so that they reduce the software because they don't buy for every solution a new software. So this is why they are not used to implement new software solutions very often. They have their main software topics and what they are used to work with. Also, they have less collaboration solutions. Maybe just because they just go to the next bureau when they want to talk to somebody else, or of course they can call him. But these smaller offices are very a part of not having so much collaboration solutions, so they are not used to something like Teams. And the technological development is missing. And what do I mean with this? Well, mainly in smaller companies, there are 1 or 2 administrators, IT administrators, and I think they are doing a great job in first and second level support. But what I recognize is that the development for technological software solutions or IT solutions is not so big because they have to do so many, have to spend so much time on first and second level support that this development is missing. So the customers or the employees from the company are also not so used to changing things in their environment. I know this does not count for all companies, of course, and not for all IT administrators, but in my knowledge from 20 years working with SMB customers, this is a main fact. Also, some companies have external IT support, and this external IT support is also often very focused on first and second level support. And that's what I think it's a shame, because the companies could do more when they could more develop, and somebody needs to help them. All what I want to say in this case is that the employees are not used to have so many changes in their working life, and that is an impact what I think is needs to be known when you come with Teams around the corner. So let's see. Yeah, no, it comes around the corner. What about Teams? How does Teams come to these smaller SMB customers? Well, what I have seen are 3 different things. First of all, the boss has a friend who's also a boss, and one boss told another boss, "May we have now Teams and it's totally cool, so you also need Teams." And whether the boss knows what he can do with it or not, I think he says to his employees, "Okay, we need Teams. my buddy also told he is using Teams, and Teams is great. So I think nobody knows what is the main feature from Teams. They just want to have it because the boss says we need it. A second part could be that interested employees are IT affine, so they have fun working with IT and they know about Teams, and they think it's possible, a good solution to have Teams in their company. So there are just a handful of people who are interested in pushing this software solution. Or the third thing is that maybe the customers from this company come to the company and say, hey, we're working in Teams and it would be great if you could do our projects together in Teams. And the company then says, okay, Teams? Yeah, I heard it. It's a chat tool. Huh? So what I want to tell you here is that what I see often in smaller companies is that just this 1, 2, 3 persons who are aware of the benefits of Teams see these advantages and have to influence all the others. And so mainly the rest of the team in the company does not know about Teams or the advantages of Teams. And this is something we have to remember. So in every company, we know this from change management, we talk about resistance or fear. What I see in difference to enterprise companies is that we have in smaller companies, smaller groups. So in an enterprise company, you have many groups. And when there's somebody in there who is not has not the chance or does not see a chance for changing his working life with Teams, or does not see why he should do this, or he just doesn't like it, then it's in an enterprise company not so easy for him to influence all the others. In smaller companies, you have smaller groups or less groups, and 1 or 2 employees can act here as a ringleader. So when they come to the canteen and they're sitting all his colleagues and he's talking about Teams, maybe he reaches more people with his negative point of view about Teams. So he can influence them more with his opinion than maybe in a bigger company this could work. So as you see in the picture, my black sheep, no, of course it's not a black sheep. We have to handle this resistance. I just want to show in this picture how one person could influence so many others. So here are my 5 tips around successful change. And I know this is not, of course, something that depends on on smaller companies, also enterprise companies. And I know you know that starting with a why is the most important thing, because when people don't know why they should change, the change maybe will not work. Like Simon Sinek says in the TED Talk, the circle of the why, it is very important to show this. And I will show you in the next slides how we do this in our workshops, why it's so important to talk about Teams. Of course, the question, what's in for me, the change for the individual needs to be answered. What's in for me? Why should I do this? And we need to talk about this and show them why it's so important to have this change. And what I like to do is also to build a team about this. Find the people who enjoy and have a high reputation. What I mean is that when we have this people, the informal leaders of the team, in our champions team, for example, of the team that adopt Microsoft Teams together with the consultant, and there are people in this team who have a high reputation, where other employees that don't have an opinion on a change, they don't know if it's good or bad, maybe these people who are in this team can influence them in a positive way. We have done this many times, and it's always the same. When we have this high reputation people, the informal leaders in our champions team, and they work together with us to implement teams or to adapt teams, they have a better understanding for what we are doing, and they can better tell the other employees in the company what we are doing, and they trust more on these people. So this is one main point in smaller companies. What I say: find the people, find the informal leaders, and put them in your adoption team. Change needs room, of course. Leave room for farewell. The employees have to move from the comfort zone, and this is not always a good thing for the most people, of course. So what is really needful is listen to the people, and you will be listened to. Hear what they say. I think this communication part is very important. Nevertheless, it's a small company or an enterprise company. You need to talk to the people and give them the room to think about this change and to talk about this change and why maybe they have resistance or they don't like it. Maybe you can find a way in communication to help them. And the last thing, what's also left behind just in smaller companies very often, set milestones and celebrate success. You know, from the ATCA model, the R for the last thing in this 5-step series, set milestones and celebrate success. So when we have milestones, we have to set milestones, and then we can celebrate them because we will reach them. And this helps to have a positive impact on this change. Nevertheless, we also have positive things from marketing, internal marketing for teams, but this is a different part I don't want to talk today about. But I always see in smaller companies, they don't set milestones and they don't celebrate success. So this is something that I really want to give you, these 5 tips around successful change, what I think is very important. Okay, how's the procedure of doing this? First of all, we do a workshop number 1. It's called just number 1, and we put together the executive, the managing directors, the team leaders in this workshop. So when you think about 100 employee customer or company, this will be around 10 to 15 people usually from the leaders team. Well, I just announced here, it's not my main focus, but when you really have a company smaller than 20 employees, you just put everybody in this first workshop. But that's not the main thing. I think it starts with around 50 people, 50 employees up, and then 100, 150, 200 and more. So we put around by 100 employees, 10 to 15 people in this workshop number 1. And what do we tell them? Here's the agenda I brought with me. It's first of all the why. We just talked about it. It's mainly so that many people really think Teams is a chat tool. I think you all know this, and I cannot hear myself saying this because it's every day I have to talk about this. Teams is no chat tool. But what we have to say here is the cultural change. This is what I think the why we should change for this collaboration tool. Just see the Generation Z, and what I often tell the boss and the executive, how can you explain a 16-year-old teenager that he should use a keyboard, a mouse, and a table telephone when this teenager just knows voice recognition and touchscreen? So this is so different from his usual life with digitalization that a keyboard and a mouse is not the thing he expects to work with. So we need more possibilities to have this generation in our company. So we have a battle for the workforce. And this is a point where I get most bosses and executive level, and where they say, okay, we know what you're talking about, and we have a problem here because our company is so old and we have done this all the time the same way. So we need maybe the change. So they accept the why. And the second thing is, of course, we have more teamwork. That's an easy thing because the most companies also recognize that they have more teamwork in their company. So this is easy. So this is the thing where we start with a why. Sometimes they look in the first half hour and say, oh, what are you talking about? I thought we get an introduction to Teams. Yes, waited. It comes later, because first of all, you need to know why we're standing here and why we are talking about this. I had a great day, one workshop. I met the executive leaders, and the boss told me, okay, I have 10 minutes for you in this workshop. It takes 4 hours or so. He has 10 minutes. And then he will have to leave. And I told him that when we talk about cultural change in the beginning, and maybe you have half an hour to listen to me. And at the end, he spent all the 4 hours in this workshop. And I asked him afterward why he sat down and heard me speaking all the 4 hours. And he told me that it was such a huge impact what I was talking about, the change and how they work in future, that he said, I, as a boss, need to know about this in my company. So I was very happy about this, because this one accepted that there is a change and he has to support this change as the sponsor. That was pretty cool. Okay, then we go to basic Teams. What is Teams? What is the idea of Teams? What about email? I think this is also a very, very important part, because we have to tell the people it's not a chat tool. And this is the part where I tell this. And then, of course, we go further on to Teams live demos, self-testing in demo tenant. And the main thing is now coming, the brainstorming. Everybody has to think about use cases in his department. Well, you remember we have the team leaders from the departments in this workshop, because we have a smaller company. And I tell them, okay, find out in 6 minutes what you think, what you have heard right now about Microsoft Teams. How could this help you in your company, in your department? And what could Teams make better? And I know in the first part, after listening 3 hours to me, they have a look and say, yeah, okay, maybe we'll see what might happen, what could be an example. And when the first one starts talking about, oh, I have a cool use case, this could work in this and this, and all the others then start talking about it and say, okay, this is cool, yeah, I have the same use case or something similar. And so you put on the energy. It's not in the first moment, but when they start talking about use cases, they more and more understand what a cool use case could be in their company. And so we have a look on a mind map, what I always do in this later. But the last thing what you have to do in this workshop is then find a champions team. Of course, we have to talk to the leaders who could be a champion in the adopting team, somebody who can help us, who is tech affine and who is the informal leader maybe. And so we talk also about this for the next workshop. So let's have a look here. This is how a mind map looks like. I know it's very small. It's not so important because it's just one example from one company. All I want to show you here is that it's so that there are many ideas coming up in this workshop. And I will leave the company alone with this mind map. We don't talk about how we can use this in Teams. It's just to show them what the possibilities are. And they need to understand that Teams introduction and adoption is not something you can do in one day. Okay, I know there are right now we have the crisis and adopting Teams is going really fast right now. But I think it's also just because of video conferencing and the chat when we talk about the teams in Teams, I think this is something really you have to do adopting and change management to understand how Teams is working. This is the main information hub for all what you can do. So, but this is different. So this is just a mind map, what many ideas the people find in the brainstorming. And this leads to workshop number 2. Of course, later than 1, 2, 3 weeks later, we built this champions team, the adoption team, willing attendees, interested, open for teams. Of course, this helps just to have an easier adoption. And I think this is similar to enterprise companies, but I just show you what process we have in following. And the agenda for the workshop number 2 is also the same: basic in Teams, basic live demo, the Teams live demo, self-testing. But what's the difference is we want to take the mind map and we find 5 main teams to start with. What I want to have is when we go in the user trainings, we need a filled Teams team, or more than one team, up to 5 teams we have in Microsoft Teams. Because just for an example, when you come in a meeting room and no one is sitting in the meeting room, I think you will leave the meeting room. So what I want to tell you is it's easier in user trainings to have a starting point in Teams and starting processes, easy processes, not critical business processes we can start with. I have an example I brought with you in the next slides. So 5 main teams that are not in a critical process, and then we can start this, or we can use this to start the user training with these 5 elements. I always say something like, what are the meals in the canteen? What can you eat today? When you push this in Teams, they have to look up in Teams to see this, and there may be no second part where they can look at it. Maybe at the intranet. Well, most of the small companies don't have an intranet, but somehow they have somewhere the information about what is about eating dinner, and you can put this in Teams. This is not business critical, but it helps adopting Teams, in my opinion, in smaller companies. Okay, so we go on, and I will show you an example what we have starting in Teams. It was in a company that is also in IT administration and consulting, and they sell laptops and whatever, also hardware. And they had a process that was like this. They sell a product to a customer, maybe a good laptop for the boss. And the boss, maybe you know this, returns this laptop because he says, no, it's not like that what I wanted. It's too small or too big or whatever. It's too not so good as I wanted. And because it's a good customer, of course, you will take back this laptop. But what are you doing now with the laptop? And this company has done before without Teams. They made up an Excel list. And in this Excel list, they printed all the stuff that's coming back that the salespeople need to sell. And then there was a Dell XP whatever laptop with the hardware IDs and what it should cost. But this person who was responsible for this sent out this Excel list via email to the sales team. And the sales team mainly deleted this email because when they need something like a laptop, they always had this old Excel list, because when they used the Excel list, they don't know if still these items are in stock. So they don't use this process. They delete the email and they sell new ones. And we changed this to Microsoft Teams with a very small aspect in Teams. And it's not business critical, but it helps the resellers or the seller, the sales team, to sell this. Okay, we have done, I'm sorry, this is in German, but I think you see what I want to tell you. We build up a Teams team, That's for this responsible person. And there are two things he could do. First of all, he puts this Excel list in the tabs. So this is always a correct list of the things in stock. Yeah, we only have this one list, and it's always correct. So the sales team can look in this list, and they will know this is already or still in stock. And the responsible person could post a photo from this item with the hardware IDs and of course the price. So seeing this item for the reseller, for the sales team, is much easier than to recognize, okay, we have a Surface Pro that needs to be sold. And on the next day or next days, they maybe find it easier to remember, oh, there was a photo from a Surface, maybe we still have it, and they can look in the list, in the stock list, if it's still there. So it's a very easy process, not business critical, but it's just totally different to what they expected to do in teams. Okay. So, and then of course we have workshop number 3. The future of works begins today. It's a positive workshop, of course. User training, 1.5 hours. It depends on the people, of course. We also have the adopting team or the champions team in this user trainings. Maybe they do the trainings. Often in smaller companies, I do the trainings or our team does the trainings, and the champions are also there because we have a practical part. And when they're not so used to IT and teams, maybe it's easier when you have a part of 6 or 10 people in this training. It's good to have 1 or 2 champions also in there who help doing this practical part using Teams. And we have the commitment to start with these 5 main teams in Teams and not starting new teams. So we just use this 5 and to get this thing running, to understand better how to use it. And then a little bit later, when the people are a little bit more used to Teams, we do the use case shopping within the departments. So they should start using Teams more and more. So we do start these critical processes together with the representatives from all departments. What I often see is that when we have the leaders team in the first workshop, one of them from the sales team tells me, oh, this is pretty cool. We can start using a team for every customer we have. Yeah, okay, you can do this, but when you have many customers, you have many teams. Yeah, correct. And what I also want to say is that when you have something like customers in Teams as a team, you need to know that there are other departments also you need to have this information. So maybe another company, another department then says, okay, we can do the support also when we have this customer in Teams. And so suddenly you have a business critical process completely built up in Teams. And it's not good because maybe you have a ticketing system or you have an ERP system or whatever you also have. And you need to really know what is documented where and where can you find it, and so that you don't have one more tool and one more tool. So it has to be a very good implementation of critical processes if you really want to do this, because in smaller companies it's easier to do than in enterprise companies. So I just want to show you this is something like a complex process. We have a consulting company who wants to have the customers in Teams, I already told you. Also with the aspect that they want to have guest access. They want the customers also in this Teams. This is not so easy because you have also informal information or information that the customer don't have or should not see like this. And what I told you, when you have more than 100 teams, it's not so easy to have an overview. Yeah? And you have to talk about this with all the departments, what is the best to adopt this business critical process. And we also already do all this mind map. And here you can see the mind map. You cannot read it, maybe very good. It does not care. I just want to show you, we really put in for every team here in a name, and then we have the general channel, and what different channels do we want to have, and what is what do we write in, or what files do we have in which channel. And so we really write it down and talk to everybody in the company, so every department says, okay, we could use this should work. Of course, this is agile. We have to change it when you find an error, of course. But first of all, what I want to tell you is, often when you don't do this, somebody in any department starts using, okay, we build up a team with our customer, and he talked to nobody in the company, and then you have a big mess then. And when I may say this, now, whenever you watch this on YouTube, you will remember we right now have this crisis on Corona, and we implement very, very fast teams. And I'm a little bit afraid of what's coming up in the next 3 or 4 months when we start normal life. Hopefully, and then we have Teams, and maybe we get this mess in Microsoft Teams because adopting and change management has not been done. So maybe there's a big hard work what lies before us in the summer of 2020. Okay, so here's now the conclusion. What I want to give you. Half an hour is over my time. Hold in mind my 5 tips for successful change, what I talked about. The why is the most important. Find the right people for the change process in the Teams Champion team. Find the people who are the informal leaders. I think this is very important. And maybe this helps you, what I've shown, the structure of the SMB change process, what I've done here in a compact way. Then you do this in enterprise companies. So, thank you very much. You have listened to my little session here. You can follow me on LinkedIn with the QR code here, or write me an email or whatever. And I really like to thank you. You can now also rate my session. It would be great. You have a good rating session for me. Sorry for my English. And well, let's see. We can meet again in the next TeamFest session. And thank you, Chris, Adam, and Visa for this great work. Goodbye.